Hello, I'm here to do a session I've been meaning to do for a while, comments on comments. And it's the perfect day to do it. We are being blessed with about 3 days of hurricane rain up here in the Northeast without any storm. We needed the rain, we're getting it. We've probably gotten 2.5 to 3 inches in the last 2 days. It's a big gulp, but the ground seems to be digesting it well. So good time to sit down and go over some comments. I will confess I have been soaked, dried out, and soaked again already today. So if I look a little disheveled, even my old hat is kind of a little water worn. But here we go. I get a fair number of comments. I love to read them. I always read them. I always appreciate them. Confession, if you don't already know, I'm not real good about getting back on them. So I thought maybe I'd comment on a few of the comments that were particularly noteworthy, good and bad, but mostly good. If we look at one of the recent videos on the green horse and the green rider, common theme with which I agree. This young man needs to learn a little bit more about when to apply pressure and, more importantly, when to release. Well, that's a lifetime lesson for all of us, but it is a point well taken. When you look at the second video, it's maybe a little better, but that was real time, so it's going to be a process. Be patient. This is a young guy feeling his way along. On our freestyle reining video that my daughter posted up from our birthday, which I appreciated hugely, I also appreciate all of the positive comments. That was fun to do. I will tell you that the day we did it, typically when there's a freestyle going on, there's a lot of shouting and clapping and so on. And if you notice, during the body of the freestyle pattern, pretty quiet. And my wife was sitting in the stands and she said, I was so worried, did this thing just sort of tank? It's just not resonating with people. And then it came to the end and she looked to her right and she looked to her left as people did begin to applaud, and all of them had tears running down their face, which I don't take pride in making people cry, but I'm a little pleased and it moved people like that. And maybe it moves some of you. If you haven't watched it yet, watch it. It's a fun thing. It's a throwback in time 10 years to when my daughter was about 19 and I was about 22. Horse of a lifetime, what I'd love to have people do, I invited people to tell the story of their horse of a lifetime, and the comments lay out a lot of very, very interesting and emotional stories. If you want to sort of share in the community, read over the comments. They're absolutely fascinating reading. Hancocks. I often say the Hancock horses, you swear by them or you swear at them. And I got comments that went both ways. One fellow wrote he had it with Hancock horses after he had a big wreck when he was trying to rope a yearling that was leaving the country, and the horse sold out. Broke his back, broke his neck, broke his ribs, broke his pelvis. If you're tired of that bloodline for that reason, you get a pass from me. Open-mindedness ends when serious injury begins. So that's the downside. If you get one of those Hancocks that will pull a knife, it's not going to be, to cite another episode, it's not going to be a rubber knife. It's going to be the real thing. The good ones are sure good though. And on that score, I heard from people who have had them and liked them, including one fella who had an intriguing thing to say. It was actually on a Facebook post. And he said that he was crossing his Hancock mares on a performance-bred stallion, and they were being shown working cow horse and doing real well. And that could work. You get the durability, strength, speed of the Hancocks, because you need speed going down the fence, and you get that cow sense and trainability. If it works great. Now, if it went the other way, you could get a hyper-athletic horse that also would buck you right off with great skill. But it sounds like that has not been his experience. I think he's breeding the right mares to the right stallions. And it's good to hear that it's working out for him. Nice comment, interesting, short, to the point comment from Tim Anderson, who has had some experience with Hancock horses. Go to his channel. Always good watching, good learning for me as well as everybody else. Tim's short comment was, there's a place in the world for Hancocks, just not with me. I respect that. You know, they are not all good, and the bad ones are as memorable as the good ones. Interesting question about whether Joe Hancock was really by a Percheron or by a strain of horses that were common at that time, known as Canadian horses. It's possible. Suffice it to say that Joe Hancock's background for a long time was shrouded in mystery because people did not want to admit that there was a draft cross there because they thought it would drive the people who wanted riding horses away. It's pretty clear at this point that some sort of drafty horse was involved. It's generally conceded it's a Percheron, but the Canadian horse idea is intriguing. Finally, somebody asked if anyone had used these real tough Hancock horses for endurance horses. And my answer would be that I don't know. Certainly on some level they would do quite well. They're a little thicker than the typical endurance horse. Plus, if you look at a present day endurance ride, you are going to find that those horses are as Arabian as Osama bin Laden. They are absolutely going to be many, many Arabs. They dominate in the long distance riding as they should. They are heart-lung machines on legs. They are traveling fools. So I think the Hancocks would have a place. They'd sure get you through it. Whether they could beat one of those Arabs, tough question. On do-it-yourself horsemanship, the best comment came in from a fellow who often sends very thoughtful comments, named Race Nail, who says, you can't teach a horse what you don't know yourself. I spent 15 or 20 minutes on that video trying to say that that's the point. You know, there are limits. That defines them remarkably well. Another question on spook testing a young horse. When I led our yearling Buddy through our construction zone, and he did real well, and a gentleman wrote in and said, my mare is great doing the same sort of things when I'm on the ground, but when I'm in the saddle, she's nowhere near as sure. Well, that's not unusual. A couple of things to take into account. One is, when you're on the ground with them, they're usually following you. So a lot of times a horse that is a little spooky under saddle will actually do better if they're the follower of another horse too. But if it's just you and the horse and you're on their back, they feel a little bit alone because the first thing that enters that new space is their head. So that's the reason why a lot of horses aren't as good under saddle. They feel more alone and they're not following anybody. Another older set of videos that's gotten a lot of views recently is the Belligerent Horse series. The most memorable one perhaps was, there's no such thing as a belligerent horse. Really? Well, let's just say if that horse wasn't belligerent, he'll damn sure do till belligerent comes along. The other thing that I heard from a number of people, and it's a good point, and we didn't address it in the video, is the horse in pain? Is he kicking up because he's got a sore back? The folks who own that horse are very thorough, very thoughtful about how they handle their horses. He was checked out by a vet. He showed no signs of back soreness. I do sort of the standard check to make sure the horse is comfortable. It's not real scientific, but his back felt steel belted. It wasn't his back. Look a little further forward in his brain and you would find the real problem. That did get better. Would not have gotten as dramatically better if it had been a pain-based response. Then the final one that I've got to respond to, because sometimes I do chat a bit. Fella said of me, he stutters and he stammers and he drags the stories out too long. All I can say is I'm so sorry about that. Thanks. Till next time.